There we go. I'm on. Okay, cool. It is great to be with you again this morning. But the good thing about it is for you and for me, you won't be hearing me preach this morning. That was a very much a delayed reaction. I was expecting it to be a little bit quicker than that. I don't know, is Brad around? I don't know if Brad's around, but let me give that to Brad for me. Come on. So yeah, as you can see on the screen, Angel, come on, join me. You will see that we have a. Let me put your stuff down on that. You'll see that we have a missionary coming to speak with us this morning. Yeah, round of applause. Round of applause. And is that the longest round of applause you've ever been given? Which is a good thing. It's a good thing. The great thing about this is that today, this People of Grace series that we've been in, the title for today's message would have been Activating God's Grace for Mission. And that wasn't anything planned. It was just, okay, we're going to do this in here. And I mean, that's the wonderful thing of how God works. That on the day that I was going to try and talk about mission, we actually have somebody who is there. Shoes, boots on the ground, hands in the community, whatever you want to call it, we have someone that's going to be doing it. And I'm kind of also trying to prolong this a little bit of an intro because I'm trying to wait for the iPad to come back together. Angel does have some slides that she's going to want to show you. I want to make sure that she gets to be able to do that. And I don't really want to take away from what you're going to say, so I don't really know what questions to ask you. Pretty much everything is probably okay. Okay. I'm not going to ask her about that. So, the big question, I guess, is, how did you become a missionary?
Okay, that's a lot. Is it on?
It's on. Cool.
So it started because in 2010, I actually had already planned to go to South Korea to teach English, but just before I left, like a month and a half before I left, I went to one of those Mother's Day events at my grandmother's church where they give you tea and frilly things and everything is pink. And so the speaker was Andrea Saltel, and she was talking about Honduras. And I don't really remember most of what she said, but she just made one comment about how the street children there, how they're treated, that they're seen as pests, so much that if they're in the community, they will actually call in, like, people. The neighborhood would call in people to come and get rid of the children, to kill them in a kind of social cleansing, just to get them away. And I was horrified, and I just couldn't get that out of my head. So it wasn't like an immediate thing, but at that point I went to Korea, and it had been about a year or two, and I was still thinking about these kids over and over. And so I just felt like, I just knew that if I was still thinking about them and feeling that kind of burden for them, then it was my responsibility to do something. And I never specifically felt like I had to go to Honduras, but just had to go somewhere. So it still took some years. I ended up in Cambodia briefly. I had to leave in March of 2020 when everything shut down. And then now I'm in Thailand. But that part of the world is known for human trafficking, for sex tourism, pedophile tourism, things like that. So there's a lot of hurting people and a lot of hurting kids in that part of the world.
And again, just the way that, as I was listening to Angel speak there, just the way that there was somebody that came to their church and they spoke about missions, and she heard God's call on her life to be a missionary. I just think that's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I padded as long as I can pad. It doesn't look like we're going to get the thing for you to click through. So when you want us to click through, just say click next slide, and the person will do it back there for you. Okay. So without further ado, I give to you Angel Jones, our missionary. Again, give her a round of applause.
My name wasn't always Daisy. It used to be Jup Jip. That was my Thai name. You can click one. You can click the slide. Okay. In a crowded night market in the middle of Chiang Mai, Thailand, a missionary teacher walked through the crowd. All around him, vendors were selling food and handicrafts and souvenirs to tourists and to locals who were all searching for deals. Amidst all the chaos and activity, he saw a young, brown-skinned, black-haired girl just playing by herself. So he became curious. Who was she and why was she alone? Where were her parents? So he looked around and he soon discovered that her mom worked in a massage parlor nearby, which if you know anything about Thailand, there are massage parlors everywhere. So she was working nearby, and so he decided to talk with her. He soon found out that the girl had been shuffled from one children's home to the next, to the next, to the next. And even now, she was with her mom, but her mom couldn't take care of her, so she was just fending for herself while her mom worked. Soon, she would be sent to yet another children's home. So the teacher started talking with this mom and told her that he worked at a place called the School of Promise. Daisy's mom became interested, and she decided that she wanted her daughter to study at School of Promise, and so she sent her daughter to live nearby that school. So the School of Promise is where I work now. You can click one. The School of Promise is where I work now. My name is Angelina Jones, or Angel, either way is fine, especially if you know my mother on this district. She's also Angelina, so Angel is okay. And I currently serve as a Nazarene missionary in Thailand. So our school is really unique for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that our school is a Christian school, but our students are primarily Buddhists. They come from Buddhist families. Thailand is about 95% Buddhist. And so everything that these kids know, their whole background, everything around them is Buddhism. So if they didn't come to our school, they would never hear about the Bible, about God, about Christianity, anything like that. So especially where I live in Chiang Mai, we call it a Wat, which is like a small Buddhist temple that the community can go to and pray. We have one within walking distance of every house. And so this picture over here is the school. They're lined up for the flagpole in the morning. And then the picture on the top is the Wat that's like 3 to 5 minutes walking from the school. So it's just right down the street. All over the city, there are all kinds of Buddhist decorations and things. And in front of every house and every business, in front of everywhere, they have what they call spirit houses. So spirit houses look kind of like really ornate birdhouses that are like up on a pedestal. And every day, people go and they put offerings at the spirit house. Usually food or drinks, especially red Fanta, I don't know why. Candy, and they burn incense. Because the idea is, if you can keep the spirits there and keep them happy, it's kind of two-sided benefit. You can appease them and make them happy and honor them. And at the same time, if they're happy, they're not going to come into your house and cause you harm or do anything or make you sick or whatever. So by keeping them happy with the offerings, you also get the benefit from that. And so I have a picture of, you can go back really quick. I have a picture of 2 spirit houses. The one on the left, I think it's a little dark. I don't know if you can see it, but that is outside of 7-Eleven, which there are also 7-Elevens absolutely everywhere in Thailand. So that one is outside 7-Eleven, and then the one on the right is really a dark picture. But I was walking down the street, and then just to the side of me there was a rice field But between the street and the rice field, there was a couple banana trees. And right there underneath the banana trees was a spirit house that someone had put there to protect their field from harm caused by the spirits. And so these are really everywhere. Outside the shopping malls, there are giant ones. Sometimes there's like 4 or 5 of them clustered together. They're absolutely everywhere. So this is the context that the students at our school are growing up in. But because they come to our school, they learn about, about God, about Christianity. And so that's probably the only place they would ever hear it. We also have a church that meets on Sunday mornings at the school. And so we have several students who come, especially like middle and high school kids, but we have some younger ones as well. And they will come sometimes because of what they've learned in class, but also sometimes they just come because we ask for their help. So some of their parents might not necessarily want them to go to church. Well, our family is Buddhist, we don't follow Christianity. But if we tell them, like, every Sunday we translate the sermon between Thai and English. And so sometimes we'll tell them, like, oh, your kid is really good at English, we need their help this week, can they be the translator? Well, now it's an honor, and now their family's like, yeah, of course, and then they'll send their kid to church. So we have a lot of middle and high schoolers who will come and be a part of the worship team or help with translation or things like that. So the second thing that makes our school really unique is that about half of our kids come to us from difficult backgrounds and difficult home situations. We have several from children's homes. We have some where one or both of their parents might not necessarily treat them the best. One of my students, his mom was brought out of trafficking, and so there's another organization that helps her, and then in the meantime, he comes to our school and studies with us. And so about half of the kids we give them a scholarship, because if they weren't studying with us, they might not be studying anywhere. But if we bring them in and give them a scholarship to study, they're more likely to stay, and it keeps them safe for now. It's hard to find an exact statistic, but one of the things I've heard is that approximately 1 in every 4 kids in Thailand is in danger of being trafficked. That's just what happens in that part of the world. And sometimes it can be through like brothels or things like that, sometimes just working. Sometimes they marry off the girls younger just to kind of get them out of the house. And so if they come study with us, they're safe from all of that. So it helps them now, and then it gives them a good education so that way they can have a better future, their family can have a better future. Overall, it's just, there's multiple ways that it can benefit them to come study. So Daisy was one of these kids. She was 7 years old when she first started at the School of Promise. But after only a few months, the children's home where she was living had decided to shut down. And really quickly too, like I think it was like a week or something. They're like, okay, we're done by the end of the week. So she had nowhere to go and literally nobody to take her in. What she didn't know was that at the same time, God was speaking to a missionary couple whose picture you can see up there. They're actually the founders of the school. But they told me it was like God had given them a vision where they could see Daisy's face and a caption almost over her head saying, "This girl needs a family." So they decided to follow that. I want to tell you the story through Daisy's words. So I asked her about this time, and this is how she related to me. I was in a lot of children's homes because my mom didn't have enough money. Finally, I rested at this one children's home close to the School of Promise, but it started to shut down, and then everybody just went back to their parents except for me, because my mom was just somewhere out there. I had no idea where she was. I was like, well, I'm doomed. I don't know where to go, and I'm just watching everybody leave. I wasn't breaking down crying. I was like, obviously, this is a children's home. They take care of children, so if they're going to shut down, they're going to do something with me. I think I felt like that because I had been moving a lot, and so I was just going with the flow. I was just standing there, waiting for things to happen and watching people leave. Suddenly, a miracle happened. I see this car driving up to the gate. I thought, who could this possibly be? And it was my dad, and he was like, "We are going to take you home." I didn't really have any feelings back then. I was just like, oh, yes, okay, I have a place to sleep. I stayed at their house for a really long time, and I connected with them and developed a really strong relationship with my siblings. So they brought her home and began the very long and complicated process of adopting her. They told me that just in Thailand alone, it was a 7-year process. After it finished, it was another 2 years to do it through the US. And now they're still working on getting her US citizenship and passport and things like that. But she is about to start her senior year in high school, and she's doing really well. Both Daisy and her parents have told me that as they've gone through this whole journey, they can see where God has gone in front of them, step by step, and led the way. And this is just one story. This is one kid whose life was changed by the work at the School of Promise. There are so many more stories I could tell you. Can you click one? For example, I could tell you about Forrest. Forrest and I started at the School of Promise at the same time in 2021. She was in my level 3 English class, and she was great because she always did all her work. Everything was so beautiful. Her handwriting was neat. She actually turned in her assignments, because sometimes it's really hard to get the kids to do that. Everything was perfect, except for one thing, which was that everything she turned in was completely wrong, which I'm not sure how that's possible, but somehow that's what happened. Which I don't know how to grade kids like that. Like, I want to give her a good grade for trying, but it was just horrible. But she worked really, really hard, and she was really diligent. So just this past year, she was in my class again in level 4, and this time she had improved so much that she actually had the second highest grade in the class. The only kid that she was behind is a kid who is half American and half Thai, so his English is just normal, like perfect. But she was the best one after him. And she also really has a gift for impacting and influencing others. So you can see there attached to her picture, there's a second one where she is standing at the whiteboard, and there's a little boy just looking like, That's because I had taught a lesson and he did not understand it at all. Very sweet kid, but just did not understand. And so she came to the front, grabbed a marker, and retaught the lesson, but in Thai instead of English, and wrote it all out with examples, everything. And he actually stood there and listened to it and learned the lesson for the day, because she taught it to him. So I don't know, but she better be a teacher when she grows up, because that is like her calling. The best way maybe to see her gift at influencing others is in Jason's story. So he's the bottom middle. Jason is super sweet, such a nice kid. But he was in my class this past year, and he was a little bit behind the other students in terms of like maturity. So he often, he would just act really childish. He would get easily upset. Sometimes he had a hard time getting along with the other kids as they were playing, because he would be upset that something was unfair or something like that. So sometimes he ended up kind of just by himself, because it was hard for him to really deal with the others. Well, as the school year went on, I noticed that he was changing, and towards the end of the school year, I was really shocked. I was like, how is this possible? So I went to his Thai teacher. She's kind of my co-teacher. I do the morning and she does the afternoon. And so I went to her and I was like, have you noticed how much Jason has changed? It's like night and day difference. And she just laughed at me and she said, oh yeah, well that's because I put him and Forrest to sit next to each other, because I wanted her to rub off on him. And it really, really worked. Like by the end, he was almost too mature for everybody else. He was the leader in the class. I always joke with the kids, and so he started joking back with me in a way that for most people probably wouldn't be okay, because it's kind of mean. And then he's like, no, I'm just joking. I don't really mean it. I'm like, yeah, I got it. Okay. Yeah, he really came a long way during the school year. And it's all thanks to this little 9-year-old girl. So it's not just teachers that can make a difference. It's also the students who can make a difference in each other's life. I could also tell you about Faith. Faith is very special to me. She is fun and silly and loving, and she always wants to help out. She's very protective of the younger kids, but Faith struggles a lot in her studies. She really just needs a lot of space to be her normal, goofy self. But when you're at school and you need to sit there at a desk and do your work, that's not really the easiest. So when I first went there, she was in my class. She's older than the other kids, and she had been held back. And whenever I would talk to anyone about her, like, oh, by the way, do you know Faith? Every time, without fail, doesn't matter who I was talking to or what my intention was, every time they would say, oh, yeah, I know her. Well, she's special needs. Don't worry about her. Or, oh, yeah, I know her, but, school is hard for her, so you don't need to give her work. Or just give her something easy, a really easy test, less than the other kids. They don't even know what I'm going to say about her, but that's the reputation she had, that she can't do it, that she's just special needs. Which made me really mad because she's actually quite smart. It's just you first have to build that relationship and then you can push her. So the first year that she was in my class, I've taught there 2 years. So the first year, she did nothing. She turned in nothing. And so when my second year started, they wanted to hold her back again, and I refused. And I was like, no, she's coming with me. And they tried to tell me that wasn't a good idea, and I was like, no, I don't care. She's coming in my class. And so they moved her up to level 4, and we had just been able to build that kind of relationship so that now, the very first quiz that I gave them for the year, she got 100% on that quiz. And then after that, she didn't get 100 anymore, but she still got pretty high grades. I mean, especially compared to where she came from. And it's all just because she needed to build that trust first. And so now, whenever I talk to anybody, and if I say like, oh, by the way, do you know Faith? Now what everyone says is, oh, yeah, I know her. She's the one that's good at English. Which, that's a huge difference because you're going from she can't do it to, yeah, now she's really talented at this thing that we very much prize and value here. And so that can literally change her life if she keeps going with that. So I think our classes have made a big difference for her. I could also tell you about Bree. She had decided that she wanted to follow God, but she was facing some difficulties at home. And so she actually moved in with a teacher, which is not all that uncommon at our school. And because she moved in with the teacher, she was able to keep coming to our school, keep coming to church, and learning about God and following that way. I recently heard that she has moved back home, so it's just her and her dad, which is where some of the issue was before, so if you could pray for her, I would appreciate that. Or I could tell you about Thomas. Thomas was in my class, and his Thai teacher assigned him a book called Turn Left for Joy. So that's what that picture is next to him. It's that book. And he was assigned to read it. So he took it home and read it with his family. And him and his mom realized that the kind of joy and happiness that the book is talking about, they see it in the people at School of Promise. So his mom decided to come and talk with his teacher. And because of that, she was able to share about the hope and joy that comes from Christ. So the last I've heard is that his mom is not really interested for herself, but she's given permission for him to learn more about it if he wants to. Which in Thailand, that's a really huge deal because it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, whatever your parents say, you have to do it. So like, for example, just earlier this year, in like February or something, we had one of our teachers who had to quit our school and go work somewhere else because her parents told her that they wanted her to go to a different school that paid more. And she didn't want to leave, but she had no choice. And so the fact that Thomas's mom is saying, well, not for me, but it's okay for my kid, that's a really big deal. And I'm seeing that more and more at our school. And so I'm very interested to see how it works with this new generation that's coming up and what they will be open to and accept and things like that. So teaching about God and the Bible is a huge part of what we do at school. You can click to the next one. So in my class, I realized that a lot of the students, they kind of knew the general Sunday school type stories because they've heard them in all their classes, but they didn't really know anything deeper than that. And so I decided that we were going to study the book of Luke together, story by story. So each day they came, we would do one story. I would tell it to them, maybe draw some pictures on the whiteboard so they could understand it, and then I would give them a coloring sheet because even though it's very simple, if you're looking at the picture enough that you're like spending time to color it, I think it will like cement in your mind more. And also, if you keep them, you almost have a sort of visual Gospel of Luke by the end. So in this picture, they are, well, one of the pictures they're coloring. In the other picture, one of the boys, who I'll tell you about in a second, he is too cool to color. So I showed them that if you take your paper and put it against the window, the light will come through and you can trace it. So that's what they're all doing, standing at the window. They're not knocking, they're tracing a picture. So we started studying the book of Luke, and it very quickly became their favorite part of the day. So much that some days if I went there and said, like, sorry guys, I don't have it today, I didn't bring a coloring paper, we're just gonna skip it, we'll do it next time. It's a bad idea. They're just gonna complain all day. They don't wanna do their lesson because they want the Bible story. So I've learned my lesson to always be prepared. And they really remember it too. For example, there was one day that I started off a story talking about, okay, it was the Sabbath and Jesus was in the temple. And this kid put his hand up and he's just like, teacher, no. Teacher, we've already done this one. What? And so I'm like looking through my notes and I was like, no, we haven't. And he's like, yes, we have. I'm searching everything. I was like, I swear we have not done this one. And then he started telling me all the details of this story, only it turns out it wasn't that day's story. It was another story where Jesus was at the temple, and it was like a few weeks before, and he knew the whole thing. He knew all the details of it. So these stories are really like cementing into their hearts and into their minds. And I hope that as they move up into their next level of class, that they will continue to remember these stories. So I had thought about which story really stuck out to me from this school year. Which story meant a lot to the kids so that I could share it with you. And there is one that came to mind. But before I tell you that story, I need a little bit of audience participation. It's related, I promise. And so I want you to think about if you're going on a trip. So for example, just imagine that you're going to come visit me in Thailand. What do you need to bring? What will you pack? You can just say it. Clothes? Passport? Your Bible? Okay. Sunscreen. I can hear something, like I can hear people talking, but I don't actually know what you're saying. Okay, your cell phone. Especially these days, everything is on the phone. Okay, charger and adapter. What? Okay, gifts. Yes, hygiene type products. You'll probably also need some money. Might be helpful. Okay, so now that you're all packed and you've got your things set, what if I told you to forget that and just leave it there and just come anyway? Hop on the plane and just go. Would you do it? No, and I would think you were crazy if you did too. That doesn't make any sense. But in the story, that's pretty much exactly what happened. You can click to the next one. So we were talking about a story in Luke chapter 10. By the way, this is Justin, and he is absolutely a wild child. And so I chose this picture because it fits him perfectly. He's sitting there going, that's just who he is. But he remembers all the stories. And this story in particular, he was very interested in, because this story is when Jesus sends out the 72 to go ahead of him and kind of prepare the way. So they're supposed to go into every town that Jesus is about to go in and meet the people there, talk with them, and just, let them know that the kingdom of God is here. And the very first thing is that Jesus tells them, you don't need to take a purse or bag or sandals. So in other words, you don't need your money. You don't need your bag with any supplies in it. Just leave all your supplies. And you don't even need extra shoes. So you don't need your different clothes, anything like that. You just go. So when I told them this part, Justin became very concerned. And he was like, but teacher, if they don't have money, how are they going to eat? How are they going to buy their food? And so I was like, well, good job, because actually that's the next part of the story, is when they get to the town, they need to find someone in that town who will accept them into their home and kind of be their host, feed them and things like that. And whatever that person gives to Jesus' followers, that's what they have. That's what they eat, they stay and sleep at the house, everything like that. And he thought about it for a second, and he was like, but teacher, what if they go to a town and nobody will let them in their house? And I was like, well, that's the next part of the story, is that if there's nobody, then that's it. Then they leave. Maybe give a warning, the kingdom of God has come near to you, but you haven't accepted it. And then continue on their way. Because the whole idea of it is that Jesus is going ahead, God is going ahead of them and preparing the way and preparing people's hearts and minds. And so I was super impressed with Justin's critical thinking skills and how much he was actually considering this story. But as I was thinking about today and what I would share, I thought about that it has a lot of meaning for us as well. Because what I often hear people tell me is like, oh, I could never do what you do. People think that, oh, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a missionary, I can't do that kind of stuff. Or I'm not that good at strategy and strategic thinking. I don't have a Bible degree. I don't know theology that well. I can't do it. Here's the thing, is God doesn't need all of that. If you have it, great. Go to school and learn theology. Good for you. But God doesn't actually need that. He can do anything better than we can anyway. And he's already working in people's hearts, in people's lives, in their minds. And so all we need to do is find where he is at work and join him in that. And if he's not at work there, just like these 72 followers, okay, then we move on to the next place. I happen to work in Thailand, but God is not just at work in Thailand. God is also at work here. God is at work in your church. God is at work in your community, in your towns, in your own families. God is already at work here. So we just need to find where he is at work and join him in that. So for me, I can see how he is at work at the School of Promise. I can see how he is at work providing a safe place for kids where they don't have to worry about working or doing other things when they're young. I can see how he's provided a good education to prepare them for the future. And I can see how he's at work just giving them people who will love them and care about them and things like that. God is already at work there. I just happen to get a front row seat to it. So our school, you can click. Our school is about 12 years old. We just had our very first high school graduation. And we have around 150 kids, which that means that we have 150 chances every single day, Monday to Friday, to make a difference in the life of a kid, to teach them about God, and to change their future for the better. So of course, I don't work alone. We have a lot of very dedicated Thai staff who work with us, as well as we have several missionary volunteer teachers as well. Not just Nazarenes, but from multiple organizations, missionaries who have come together and are teaching at this school. In order to keep a school running, we can't do it by ourselves. We all need each other, and we all need you as well. So if this ministry is something that you are interested in and want to support, there are 4 ways that you can do that. The first and most important way to be involved is to pray. We know that God calls us to pray, and that God is the one who can do anything. And so I would ask that you please pray for our students and for their families, especially right now. The school year basically just started. I'm missing the beginning of school. And so that means that we have a bunch of returning students, but we have several new students as well. So please pray for them, that their minds will be open to what they're hearing and what they're learning, and that they and their families will be able to accept these teachings. So please pray for them, for our teachers, for our staff, everything like that, just for the operations of our school. The second way that you can be involved is to give. As I mentioned a moment ago, us teachers are volunteer teachers, which means I can't be there by myself. If you would like to help support me in staying there, talk to me later, and I can tell you how to do that. The third way to be involved is to go. If you want to go to Thailand, I can help you get there. Or if you want to go somewhere else, I can probably point you in the right direction. But you know, for a lot of you, I'm assuming you're not trying to go across the world, and that's fine. I might go over there, but you can go somewhere here. You can go to your friends, go to your neighbors. You can go across the street and talk to someone. You can invite them to your home and just talk across the table. But we can all go somewhere. The kingdom of God is not over there in the mission field. The kingdom of God is here, everywhere, all around us. So I might be there, but you are here, and we are all working together. We are in this together. So you can go somewhere. And the last way to be involved is to follow along on the journey. So I do have a Facebook group where I post photos and updates, stories, things like that. You're welcome to join it. The group name is Angelina in Asia. You can even pull out your phone and do it. I won't say anything. I also have an Instagram, but I will warn you that I almost never update Instagram because I usually forget that I have it. But it is there. So if you would like to follow me that way, you can as well. And that one is called My Dainu. So at the beginning today, I told you that Daisy's name wasn't always Daisy. So you might be wondering how she got her name. So I want to tell you this story, but I'm going to tell it in her words. My parents felt like God was saying, call her Daisy. So they came to me and they were like, how would you feel to have the English name Daisy? And I was like, Daisy? Nuh-uh, I don't want that. I want to be called Princess. What are you saying? I didn't like that name at all. Then one day, I went to the School of Promise and went to the library. I decided to read princess books, and suddenly I saw a Princess Daisy book, which is this one that I took out of the school library and will return it when I get back. I decided to read all of those books, but I didn't remember seeing this one before. I think it had just come in a new package to the library. I was reading it, and she was super cool, and she even looked like me. I came home, and I was like, okay, I'll be Daisy, because Daisy was a princess. It all just kind of worked out. It was like God had put the book there or something. You can see that through the whole time that I got here, what I had to go through, even if I felt like I was alone, you just look back and you're like, wow, God was actually taking care of me, and I was never alone. So God is already at work in the hearts and lives of people. He's already at work even leaving books on a school library shelf. So my question for you today is, where do you see God at work, and how can you join him in that? Thank you very much for letting me share with you today.